How's it going, everyone? Andy here from 4K Downtime, back at you with another 4K news update. Now today I want to focus on only just one particular news that came out. Now we all knew Nintendo had its financial briefings just literally a week ago, and I did a video about that, so if you haven't seen it, go check it out. We learned a lot of things about how the console is doing, like the sales, the games and everything like that, so I don't want to delve in too much with this part of the conversation because again I've already made another video for it, but short answer is that Nintendo is doing well, like in terms of the console sales and the games and everything like that. Of course, one of the thing that they talk about is like President Tatsumi Kimishima stepping down. It's going to be replacing by Mr. Furukawa. Now these are all nice and good, but the main thing I want to focus on today is actually what Nintendo wants to do and the talks they have about achieving its 20 million Switch shipment goal for the next fiscal year. Now, keep in mind, guys, when they said they want to achieve 20 million Switches shipment goal, it means that they are actually, it does not include obviously the amount that they've already sold, which is 17.79, I believe. It's basically, they're talking about, well, we want to sell 20 millions from now to the next end of the year. So by next year, it should be 37.79 if they actually met their target. Now, I want to focus on this topic because it's interesting to me, and it's got a lot of people kind of like thinking, all right, is it achievable? Is Nintendo like, you know, that confident that they can actually ship that many units throughout the whole of this year? And I just want to focus on that particular topic alone. Now, how is Nintendo going to achieve this? That's what most people have got in their minds, and just like thinking, yeah, it's selling well. But one of the things that you might have noticed is that during Nintendo's first quarter, like, you know, from January to March, even though technically, like, you know, their fiscal year ended at the end of March, but for the first quarter we didn't really get that much. If you remember now, if you kind of like going back and just seeing some of, like, you know, the titles that's released, there wasn't really much. Like in terms of third party, you pretty much just had Payday, I think it came out, and of course you had Bayonetta 1 and 2, the combination as well, like, which I got, and I freaking love the game. And the only real new title that actually came out was Kirby, and then that was pretty much it. There wasn't, like, technically you could even say that Kirby is also part of the last year lineup. And going forward, in terms of what we could see of Nintendo, whatever they actually do have at the moment at the pipeline, I mean, recently there was quite a few games came out, like South Park and that kind of stuff, and of course with Labo literally have just dropped like a couple of days ago. But in terms of like the games that really will push the system, because like as far as I know, yeah, Labo right now, while it sold somewhat decent, but the biggest problem here is that, especially in Japan, I think has been announced that it only shipped about, like, you know, well, the amount that sold there was only about 30% of its initial shipment. Now granted, that wouldn't spell like failure, like who knows, it probably will continue just to sell more as time goes by, but at least in terms of the initial shipment, it was only able to sell about 30% of it. So I wanted to, like, you know, take a quick look at obviously the kind of titles that Nintendo has coming down the line, or what potential titles yet that actually can come to the Switch that will actually help them get through 20 millions. Like, you know, if that's really, like, you know, what they really wanted to do, which obviously that is the case. But looking down when it comes to the upcoming titles, now in May you have something like Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, right? Like, which is a Wii U port, a really good Wii U game, by the way. Like, you know, I want to say that the game itself is amazing, but is like the thing with Wii U ports here is that sure, these will be probably new games for a lot of other people, especially if you've never played it before. But one little concern that I've always had, yeah, and I think I've talked about it in another video before, is like most of these Wii U ports, they are fairly expensive for such an old game. Now with Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, I've always thought, like, if they were to make it and put it on the Switch, if they were going to charge somewhere around, let's say $44.99, which that's the price that is currently on the eShop, then I would have already felt that maybe they should have added kind of like a compilation as well, like just get the first country's game on there as well, and maybe then, like, you know, the price tag wouldn't seem so steep. And going down, obviously you have Hyrule Warriors coming out soon as well, and this one again definitive edition, so it has all of its content and everything. But even when I'm looking down in terms of what games can potentially push sales, you've got Mario Tennis Ace, which will be literally the only other game besides Kirby that came out this year that it's actually a brand new first party title from Nintendo. Now, Mario Tennis games has always been somewhat of a budgeted title, but this one does look interesting. Then you have like some third party games like Wolfenstein and Crash. I definitely could see Crash selling really well on the Switch because, again, it's the kind of game that really speaks to Nintendo audiences, so that in itself, yeah, I think it has a good chance. Maybe not PlayStation 4 numbers, but it definitely will sell better than the Xbox One version, I'm pretty sure about that. Followed by that, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. Again, not a bad game at all at the Wii U. As a matter of fact, I've never actually played it, so could be an interesting one. But again, not one of these like, big pushers, like, in terms of selling consoles. And even after that, yeah, one of my one of my biggest anticipated games yet is Octopath Traveler, which is also coming out on July 13th. But then again, yeah, like if you've kind of like look at all of these titles that I've mentioned up until this point, yeah, none of them seems like major console sellers. Like they seem like games that if you were already an owner, you would definitely pick it up. Now, I'm not trying to say that none of these games will affect the amount of Switch sales in any way, because to be fair, yeah, future Switch buyers, you've already got a back catalog of games that you could go through. Maybe you just need more games to actually convince you to get one at this point. And of course, when you buy it, like games like Breath of the Wild, like Odyssey, Mario Kart 8 and Splatoon 2, like these four are pretty much forever green titles until their next sequels come out. Most of the people who are future Switch buyers, whenever they buy a Switch, they will at the very least probably get 2 out of these 4 games, and then along with like whatever games that is currently available at that time. But the only other 2 games that I think can be like real console pushers, and this is probably a surprise to no one, is literally Smash Brothers. Now, Smash Brothers and Pokemon. Smash Brothers is the only one that have actually confirmed that it's definitely coming out this year. That's the only one that Nintendo seems to be so confident that they will manage to get it out by this year. With Pokemon, it's because as far as I know in the briefing, they're still mentioning that it's 2018 or later. So right now they're still very, very unsure whether or not if they can actually make the cut for it. But in my eyes, yeah, let's say if they couldn't make it out to come out during the holiday season, right, and they make it come out maybe at the beginning of 2019, then I'm not too sure like how the sale will be like, because you've missed the holiday season, and Pokemon games usually come out during the holiday season because that's the time when people are just willing to spend money. But if you release it at the very beginning of the year, I don't think it will actually like do them any favors. So the way how I see it is that it's either at the end of the year or you need to like push it back a little bit. I just think releasing at the beginning of 2019, it's not very good. Now, of course, you've got other games as well, like Yoshi has been announced that it's coming out this year. No word whatsoever about whether or not it's actually going to be coming out during the holidays, or it could be a summer title. Maybe we'll learn that at E3. But the 2 other titles that I would say big in terms of from a Nintendo fan's point of view, yeah, not necessarily mainstream, it's Metroid Prime 4 as well as Bayonetta 3. Now, both of these games were, when they first was announced, yeah, you literally got only a title screen and nothing more. And whether or not if they can make the cut, yeah, then I could definitely say they will be contributing to like moving units as well, because like I could totally see that anybody who's probably buying Switches, it will basically add into that kind of like list here of games that, oh, if I buy a Switch, I will definitely be picking up that as well. But Prime 4, I really doubt it will be coming out this year. Bayonetta 3, I don't see that either, since it was only announced literally at the Game Awards last year, and if that was really the time that Platinum have started to work on it, then I really doubt that they will literally get the game ready. I'm not even sure if it's going to be playable at E3. I could see them maybe talk about it, like maybe just show off a trailer that shows some gameplay, but other than that, unless the game was already in development even way beyond when they first revealed it at the Game Awards, I don't see it coming out this year either. So the two biggest pushers, like especially during the holiday season, I think Nintendo was probably expecting a lot of their consoles to be moved during the holiday season, and Smash Brothers is most likely coming out around the November time, which is just kind of like the last Smash Brothers that came out around November. If Pokemon is also ready around that time, they'll probably like, make it, I don't know, maybe Pokemon be a December title and Smash Brothers be December, or like, the other way around. But those are the two that I really do believe can push Nintendo to reach their goal. The other thing that I really want to discuss that could also contribute to selling a lot of these consoles yet is actually something that I don't hear many people talk about beforehand, well, until Nintendo's briefing now, is Nintendo tapping into China. If you remember I can't remember which direct was it, but it was a couple of directs ago where they announced that they're working with Tencent to bring Arena of Valor, which is a really popular game in China. Like there's so many there's a very huge user base over there, and now in case you didn't know yet, China is one of those few territories that it's not even just Nintendo having trouble. Like Sony and Microsoft has that trouble when they distribute the console in that area. It just doesn't sell very well, and Nintendo have tried in the past as well, and they didn't get much success. But the biggest difference now yet is that I felt like Nintendo have done, at the very least, done some homework. Like they wanted to team up with Tencent, to produce one of their basically most famous games, in China, to be playable on the Nintendo Switch. So at the very least, I felt like due to the Switch's portability aspect, and we managed to kind of bought the rights of Arena of Valor and have it to be playable on the Switch. I could see if it does end up becoming successful, and let's say in China, a lot of people are actually really into it, and then buy the console and start taking Arena of Valor on the go and everything like that. And if that really works out for Nintendo, that in itself is also will contribute to maybe why Nintendo is so confident that it could reach 20 million units shipped, just purely because China is a really big market, and no real console, none of the console manufacturers as of right now have managed to find any sort of success over in there, because China's audience is very different compared to us over here in the West. Not necessarily our taste in games are different, but it's just they love their games that are like that, that are like mobiles, those kind of titles. So if it turns out Arena of Valor is actually a very competent port on the system, it runs fine, looks fine, plays great as well, I could potentially see the Chinese audience speaking pretty positively about it. And if it does end up selling well, again, that would definitely contribute to part of maybe why Nintendo is so confident in that. So I mean, right now those are only the titles we know. Now of course anything can happen at E3. Nintendo have already planned about their Splatoon tournament. There's going to be Smash Brothers there as well, and they're going to talk about.
And this girl
specifically
is Pyra,
this time
my new partner. We're going to Elysium.
Event that they've focus on 2018 games. Now they did set that last year when
the fate of Aegis never changes, and you're going to get Rex mixed up in this. No matter how hard you try, that boy will find some way to get involved.
Oh, yummy!
Don't hold back!
But anyway, guys, that's all I have for this video. Like I said, I just really want to
pathetic.
Nintendo's
I hear the Aegis awaken.
Now, is it
you know what she is?
Like I said, is anybody's
Yes.
guess, but with Pokemon,
I can deal with that myself.
to see the work out, if all else goes to plan and the way how Nintendo managed
The core crystal turned into a weapon.
That is how blades are born.
But anyway, let me know what you guys think as well. Comment below and if you'd like to discuss this as well. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. We very much appreciate it. And yeah, I'll be right back with another video soon.
I cannot allow them to continue with their current course.